G'day guys, Mankey with the Outer Circle, and today we're talking about the Middle-earth strategy battle game, Battle Companies. This is the newest book released by Games Workshop / Forge World for Middle-earth and the Lord of the Rings / Hobbit games. Now, as I've stated before, I'm a massive fan of the games. Even if I do shit on them, I still think they're among the best games Games Workshop ever did. That said, this book is flawed. Why is it flawed? Well, we'll get into that. I like it, but it's definitely got problems. So what I've grabbed is a couple of other books that are sort of sitting around me, which I'll go into shortly, why I think they relate to it and what's important about it. Now, when I heard this was coming out, I was actually pretty thrilled. In fact, I thought, geez, I couldn't get at my Guard of the Fountain Court, Citadel Guard force together and have a good little warband. No, it's not like that at all. It's in fact very much like Mordheim or Necromunda. Me being a big Mordheim person and this being set in a fantasy world as opposed to a science fiction world, we're going to go with Mordheim for the direct comparisons today. Now, my beloved Guard of the Fountain Court force, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get this out. It's going to have a Knight of the White Tower. He's going to lead them. I've got half a dozen Citadel Guard, a whole bunch of Guard of the Fountain Court with shields, Citadel Guard with bows and spears. It's going to be great. No. That army is pretty much going to be relegated to standard games of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Because Battle Companies doesn't use that. Anyway, let's flick through the book and I'll just discuss things as it sort of becomes relevant. At the same time as I go through this book, I'm going to refer to the Mordheim rulebook. Yes, this is one of my original copies. As you can see, it's a bit used because it's a first edition Mordheim rulebook. Anyway, in the Battle Companies, we get a lovely Middle-earth map. Now, since the game takes place in the north of Middle-earth, namely Arnor, which was the region owned by pretty much the northern half of Gondor, you could say. Gondor and Arnor were two halves of the one kingdom, and this was where Elendil and Aragorn's line comes from. And it's, well, north of a region pretty much from Rudar, which is one of the provinces, along with Cardoan and I forget the other one, sorry. But basically from Lake Evendim over here, where Fornost and Numinas are, pretty much this area here was Arnor. And of course Gondor is from the Argonath south. Now, that said, Rudar is listed, Angmar is listed, which is where the Witch King set up shop and broke the Kingdom of Arnor. But Cardoan and the third province, which again I forget, are not listed for whatever reason. So, safe to say the game takes place long after that. Also, the desolation of Smaug, including a picture of the dragon. But we've got Erebor and Dale, so we're assuming this is sometime around when Bilbo journeys to Erebor, perhaps. I can't tell for certain, so because very light on the fluff. Now, this front page artwork and map, beautiful. But as we go through, well, we'll talk more. We've used a lot of stock imagery from the films, a lot of promo shots, that kind of thing. Talks about building up your force and collecting the game. Now, basically, it's very, very light on. There's 4 pages here. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it can be a bit little when, again, I compare this to Mordheim, which is the equivalent of this. So we've got a lot of pictures of the miniatures themselves, and of course this crazy gothic Mordheim artwork. There's fluff. All this, again, cool fluff, little stories. It's like they've trimmed all that out. They've trimmed all the fat out in this book. There's pretty much no fluff, just stock artwork, and then bam, you're straight into it. builds up the story, what Mordheim is, how it came about, where it is in the world of Warhammer, what the races are that are involved, and then we get to what warbands are. And one of my favourite bits of artwork, it's actually literally one of my favourite bits of artwork. It's all about this dude who is a priest or maybe a mage of some kind, and he licks a piece of warp stone and gets full chaosified. It's fucking great. So, it goes into it. Building a warband starts here, and it goes on into terrain, all that kind of thing over the next few pages, through characteristics, what they are, that kind of thing. What the turn is, how phases work, all that kind of thing with illustrated examples, blah, 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 shooting, wounds, injuries, critical hits, close combat, how to fight, the works, leadership, psychology, weapons and armor. Believe me, it's important why I'm going through this now. In fact, I'll stop at weapons and armor. This book lacks that. And the reason it lacks that is because this is seen as an expansion to the main game. Mordheim is a standalone game. You buy a starter set, you get a Mordheim book, you get a couple of warbands in it, you get a couple of warbands in the starter set. You don't get any of that with Battle Companies. Instead, Battle Companies is saying you need to own the Hobbit rules first. And you need to have not only the Hobbit rules, but you've got to have the up-to-date rules that have been done by Forge World and Games Workshop and blah, blah, blah. So basically, it cuts it all down to just a couple of pages. Pretty light on text. Now, injuries and experience, pretty much verbatim copied from Mordheim. I mean, it's different, but one of the things we have here, which is actually towards the end of this book, is progression. Skill lists. So in here, we've got our experience and the same thing. So we've got combat skills, shooting skills, shooting progression is like they took the stuff from this page that's listed here and have put it all into sub boxes. That's perfectly fine. Speed skills, strength skills, academic skills, whereas these ones are like leadership skills, good progression, evil progression, that kind of thing. But really, it's the exact same thing. So, if I go back to weapons and armor, we end up here. Now, where Mordheim laid it out, here's what a fist does, here's what a dagger does, hammer, staff, mace, axe, sword, flail, and it goes on like this for a few pages. Missile weapons, same thing. Instead, this book says, yeah, here's the name of the item, go look it up in another book, basically. Now again, I understand this. This is an expansion to the main game, not the main game itself, but that's still a bit disingenuous, I think. Like, that's the sort of thing that should be here, because you shouldn't have to be dragging along a big heavy rule book to double check things. There should be a quick reference chart built into this book, in my personal opinion. Then it goes on to equipment, and this is nice. What I like here is they've given examples that people have sculpted of their own equipment, as they've listed off the equipment, like healing herbs, and the guy's got a little pouch of herbs, or one of the ones is like manacles, and the person describes how they made little manacles, which is like your handcuffs to go around your wrists. There's my wrists that look very chubby because the camera's on a 45-degree angle. My arms are not. Yeah, still looks chubby, whatever. I am fat, so that's fine. But it goes through and describes it. Whereas in Mordheim, had all the same thing, described how they worked, like your charm, blessed water, elven cloak, hunting arrows, all that sort of thing. Didn't have any like pictures of conversions showing how it was done. So I think it is fantastic that they've gone through and added them in. Now, that said, we're looking, the pages have no artwork on them in the backgrounds. Where Mordheim constantly interrupts with these awesome hand-drawn pics, and even just weird things like this little weird skeletal anglerfish type thing. It doesn't have any of that. And the magic for Mordheim was also different to the magic in the main rulebook. And the reason the magic was different in this was because the way magic works in Mordheim, if you used regular magic, it's too strong. With a small warband, it's way too powerful to have regular spells. With Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you have the same problem, because things like Paralyze, which can be performed by things like some of these items of war gear, are way too strong, when your warband can be as little as like 5 or 6 models. So it's just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying it's broken, but it is an issue. So then we get into the warband itself. Let's look at what the warband is. Oh well, you're just told what it is. 2 warriors of Minas Tirith with shield, 2 warriors of Minas Tirith with spear, shield, 2 warriors of Minas Tirith with bow. So 6 models, that's it, that's your force. It must be those 6 models starting. Now there is a blurb about how to create your own warbands, but we'll talk about that later. So don't think I've forgotten it, I know about it, but then what happens is, as they upgrade, you can advance them, change a warrior of Minas Tirith, say, into a knight of Minas Tirith, or into a Citadel Guard with spear, or a ranger of Gondor, that kind of thing. That's fine, that's good and well. But nonetheless, I'm not picking these. I'm not picking my models, I'm being told what to play with. Part of the beauty of Mordheim, this is basically Mordheim Light, Mordheim Dumb. Because in Mordheim, when you had a warband, let's just look Sisters of Sigmar here. Here's everything about the warband, and I get, what, 3 pages, 4 pages on it? I get to pick what my units are. They each have a cost in money that I earn by winning games. Their war gear costs money. Maybe you want to go for a bunch of Sigmarite novices with slings. It's a dirty tactic, and a lot of people did it, especially Skaven. Skaven players are very filthy rat men. Now, you've got to build your armies. So me personally, massive fan of the Nazgul and evil stuff. So, one of the things I love, I have the 9. This is the Metal Special 9. High Marshal, Betrayer, Tainted, Shadow Lord, Knight of Umbar, Dimmerlake, the Witch King, the Undying, and because I don't have Kamul, the Easterling here, I'm just going to represent him with the Mouth of Sauron, also in metal. All that's metal except for the High Marshal and the Witch King, but I do have a metal Witch King coming thanks to one of our lovely Facebook subscribers. I can't play any of those. Now, I don't expect to be able to play them. In fact, I should probably put them up into camera shot so everyone can see. Sorry. Now, I don't expect to be able to play any of these guys. But that said, I'm a big fan of them. I want to be able to use them in some capacity. I can't. Even though Angmar is the north and it's the Witch King's realm, can't use the Witch King, can't use the Dimmerlake, any of the ring wraiths that might have been there. So let's just push those aside. Alright, I'm a big fan of Black Numenorians. I think the concept's cool. Here's a bunch of Black Numenorians I prepared earlier. They're like ring wraiths, but with what weaker stats. Yeah, I can't use those either. I can upgrade to them from orcs. From fucking orcs. Or I can earn them randomly through winning battles. That's pathetic. And then eventually I can also upgrade one of them to maybe a Morgul Knight. Look at this. Is this not a cool model? I apologise if I can't get this into focus because I'm zoomed in so much on the camera. But as I zoom back out, I might be able to get it. Morgul Knight. They're cool as fuck. Now, that's earned as an upgrade. I even thought maybe I could make a Black Numenorian warband. The sacrifice is I don't have any bow equipment, any bows of any kind for the faction. Alright, that's fair enough. I got some Castellans of Dol Guldur, And I'm like, cool, I'll make some marshals on foot or captains on foot for the Black Numenorians out of these guys. Sorry, they're not fully painted, they're only base coated at the moment. No, can't even do that. In fact, if I go to that entry for Mordor, because they only come in Mordor, not Angmar forces, even though the Rudar, I think it was, or the Cardalan, one of them was evil. One of the northern parts of Arnor was evil. If I go to Mordor, eventually I can advance them to Moranon Orcs, Mordor Uruk-hai to Blackguard Barad-dûr, and a Black Numenorean into the Morgul Knight, as I said. But that's done randomly. After the battle, I get to roll a d6, and I get a new model. 1, nothing. 2, Mordor Orc with two-handed weapon. 3, Mordor Orc with Orc bow. 4, Mordor Orc with spear. 5, Mordor Orc with shield. 6, roll on the special chart, and then it's a 1 in 6 chance it's something different. Now, let's just say it's a real early game. It's the very first battle I play, and I earn a Black Numenorian. Fantastic. Now let's say next battle I play goes spectacularly, he becomes a hero. Or let's just say he gets an advancement in the very second battle. Possible, could happen, if enough things go right, kill enough people, that kind of thing. Because there are advancement charts that are located in the back of the book here. So, an experience point. Now, let's say he ranks up and becomes a Morgul Knight. I then go into my next battle with my 3 orcs, 2 orcs, 2 orcs, and 2 orcs. So I go into battle with my 9 orcs and a Morgul Knight. And the poor guy playing against me in his second game has an elf warband. He's a Riven band, and he's got 6 elves. I don't think I need to explain to anyone how much of a force multiplier a cavalry unit is in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Cavalry are fucking devastating on the charge. It's not like Mordheim or Warhammer Fantasy where you're getting like 1 extra attack. You basically double your attacks when you charge with cavalry. You can knock models down, all sorts of things. They are devastating. Now they also cause terror, Morgul Knights. And because he causes terror, it means that they have to pass a courage check in order to charge me. And a lot of the lower courage lists will fail those courage checks. And because they fail those courage checks, they won't be charging me. So I'm pretty much guaranteed to be getting the charge on them with my cavalry model that moves 10 inches a turn with no penalties compared to their 5 and 6 inches a turn. That's a big deal. And that can be happening possibly in the second game. But again, it depends. A lot of things would have to go extremely right for that to happen. Now, fiefdoms. Fiefdoms is, and elves are the 2 warbands I'm probably going to end up going with to play my games. So, as you saw, I've got 6 elves there. They're high elves, but they count as coming from Rivendell, which is a later list. With the fiefdoms, 1 Knight of Dol Amroth. Model is out of production. So, congratulations on making a game with requires models that are out of production. Really top work. Top work, Games Workshop / Forge World. The Blackroot Vale Archers also out of production. However, as they've done in the picture, I've used Rangers of Middle Earth for mine. So they got that lovely blue cloaks scheme going on. I think they're cool. I like Blackroot Vale Archers. However, the problem is their special rule is based around shooting monsters. Well, there's no monsters in this game. In this game, you're fighting people and people-sized creatures, not monsters. So you're paying a penalty, I dare say, using them over a standard ranger, because standard rangers get different war gear options. I do also have a metal original Blackroot Vale Archers command, and I suppose I could use Prince Imrahil, for example, as a Knight of Dol Amroth. However, that means if I upgrade any of my other models or get Knights of Dol Amroth later on, I'm fucked. Thankfully, in a box somewhere, I actually have a whole bunch of them, so I'm lucky that I have models from all the fiefdoms except for Forlong the Fat and Angbor and Durahir, or whatever his name is, from the Black Root Vale. All 3 of those characters are out of production, so go fuck yourself again if you want to use them. And one of the things I was thinking was, oh great, Arnor, I'll get to use Dunedain, you know, maybe I can get out my Halbarad. Again, this is another out of production model. This one's got the banner of Arwen Everstar. Again, sorry it's not painted, I recently stripped everything, my bad. But because of that, it means I can't play with the models I want to, and I think this is a major problem. So yeah, it's a thing, I guess. It's a bit of a shame because I'd have loved to have had like a Grey Company themed force, but instead, for some reason, even though this would take place during the time that Smaug has already taken Erebor, hence the desolation of Smaug, you'd imagine that there wouldn't be Warriors of Arnor since they're all rangers, but whatever, what would I know, it's only fluff, right? And for some reason, Lake Town forces are there, Lothlorien forces are there again. It doesn't really make sense why they're there. At least there was a reason with Mordheim, because Warpstone allows you to cast spells and all sorts of things, and it's incredibly precious material. Nobody's going questing into Arnor for lost items. They may as well go into a region if they want to find magical lost items or Moria. So yeah, Halls of Thranduil, same thing. What are they doing there? It just seems a bit strange. Durin's folk, I think you'd argue, yeah, they'd be there. Iron Hills, why? The Shire, definitely why. They're not adventurers. Even though it's just outside the Shire, very few hobbits ever left the Shire. And as for this, what are Haradrim doing there? How are Haradrim even getting there? What is Isengard doing churning out orcs? So none of it makes sense. I think it's a major problem. Anyway, carrying on from an earlier point. One of the forces is Warg Riders. 1, 2, 3 wild wargs and 2 with riders. This is an incredibly strong force because of the fact they're cavalry. They move fast, they claim objective fast, they can wheel around, flank their opponents, easily get into positions to gang all their forces up that other warbands simply don't have the luxury of doing. I think it's incredibly unbalanced. Yes, I mean, the Wild Wargs aren't anywhere near as strong as Warg Riders, and Warg Riders aren't as strong as, say, a Knight of Dol Amroth or a Knight of Rohan, that kind of thing. Still, very powerful force. I don't think it's in any way balanced. What are Easterlings doing there? That doesn't make sense either. Goblins from Goblin Town. It's sort of an exclusive thing to the War of the Ring that evil models were out in the wilds, because they normally don't do too well in sunlight. Angmar, Corsairs of Umbar. I mean, you could maybe make a claim that Corsairs could just be bandits or something of the north, but still. When Angmar is basically just Mordor's list repeated, but instead of Black Numenorians and Guard of Barad-dûr, you get Warg Riders and Deadmarsh Spectres. Okay. There's problems. There's a lot of problems. The scenarios are fine. The scenarios, the reward system, that kind of thing, I think is great. However, you'll notice all the way throughout, we are definitely lacking the artwork. And although it's nice that we're getting images of the actual game, we're lacking all that beautiful artwork that we otherwise had. So yeah, I think that's just a major shame personally. It just lacks that beautiful artwork. Now, rules can be simplified for these sort of games down to just a couple pages. Mordheim itself actually did it. 2 pages. Basic rules for how to fight, how to set up, move, who attacks first, rolling to hit, charging, rolling to wound, all that kind of stuff. It's all in here. It's fantastic. It's very doable. One of the other things is a page full of designer's notes that talks about how the games intend to be played, things like that. Recruiting a warband, the pages for the heroes and henchmen that you can photocopy, just like this rulebook does have. Like, I'm not trying to pull wool over anyone's eyes, I'm just trying to be comprehensive here. It's got a full price chart of everything, all types of equipment that are listed in this book, listed on one price chart here. Also has hired swords, models that can be purchased for any warband. This would have been a great place for things like, say, a Ranger of Middle-earth or a Corsair of Umbar, that kind of thing to be included. Didn't happen. Bit of a missed opportunity, I think. I think they've tried to make a super simple game, which, although laudable, I think doesn't go with the fact that you gain experience and have character progression. That doesn't work when you're trying to make something incredibly simple and basic. It's two concepts that they don't mesh too well, because you're asking someone to basically cut down all the rules, get rid of list creation, all that kind of thing, and their choices boil down to am I going to give this guy a spear? Am I not going to give this character a spear? And I mean, that's what it is, because you get to pick which one of your guys is going to be your hero. And they get one might, one will, one fate. Hope they don't die in that first battle, right? So I pick my guy, I give him his upgrades, that kind of thing. That's all my choice boils down to, because the other guys in the list, these other models, I can't do much with those. I have to earn my credits, my resources before I can do that first. It's out of my control. And yet at the same time, there's a character progression system tied to this, where models will get bigger and better and stronger as they go. I think the two ideas they don't mesh together too well. Now, this gallery of battle companies, I think it's a cool concept. They're showing what the different battle companies are within the studio that people have come up with. They've converted up. There's some nice ones in here. I really like the Iron Hills one. There's a lot of conversion and love that's gone into this force. Don't know what they're doing there, but another one that I really like is this one here. So we've got Jason Lee's Iron Hills and Duncan Rhodes' Arnor. These two really stand out from one another. Some of the other lists, I don't want to pick on anyone here, I will be rude, but they're people's own personal forces, and they're maybe not up to the standards I would expect in a professional publication. This is something I've spoken about before with the Forge World Masterclass, where there was a lot of unpainted miniatures in their dioramas. This is a professional publication. I want to see the best of the best in this book, not someone's personal warband per se. I think that's better saved for things like White Dwarf, because that's a hobbying magazine, not the professional rulebook and product. It's kind of like saying, here's a whole bunch of unpainted miniatures in our promotional material. But that is a minor criticism. I think overall the book is quite good. It suffers from the fact that it doesn't have any reading value. I can't sit down with this like I can with a copy of Mordheim and read through about the tragedy of Mordheim and look at all this cool artwork and be inspired throughout. Just not going to happen. That said, I've got a lot of Middle-earth books. This is just some of the ones on my bookshelf. These are my sort of favourite ones. Strategy Battle Game for the Desolation of Smaug, City of Gondor, I've got Palinor Field somewhere, Legions of Middle-earth, Return of the King, all different books throughout the ages. Now this book's over 50 Australian dollars. I expect it to have some sort of replay value beyond literally just rules. This is a source book, essentially. A source book and an expansion. I'm going to show you another expansion resource source book, if you will. Another Mordheim book. The Town Crier. The best of Town Crier. This one, published on the Angsteg of each Manalish. I don't have a clue what that date actually means. It's like August 2002 or something. Now, in this book, actually, first things first, price $17.50 US and UK £10. So let's say $20 Australian. Let's just say. These books, if you take the hardback off, pretty damn comparable. In fact, the Town Crier is a bit thicker. So, what do I get in the Town Crier? Well, I'm getting artwork, I'm getting stories, I get a complete campaign list for random encounters. I also get the Orc Warband included, including a sample warband, what a starting warband might look like, with their own magic rules for use in Mordheim, which again, fantastic. Different hired swords. Big fan of the Imperial Assassin personally, and the Tillian Marksman is also pretty good if you're not going for the elf. Something that a Dwarf Warband, for example, could use. I'm getting a bit Mordheimy here, aren't I? Dwarf Warband as well. And again, this is a annual publication. All this stuff in here was actually in White Dwarf at some point, but it's all been put together into a gloss cover book, which has seen a bit of use because I was a Dwarf Warband player predominantly. And all their equipment, even a fluff section story about a dwarf travelling to Mordheim and his warband and how he was disgraced from home. It's all in here. Fantastic. There's also the scenarios, and there's even templates, different creatures you might run into in that world, how to make scenery and terrain for it, all this kind of thing. People's, again, someone's own warband, but it was actually, you know, to a Games Workshop standard of painting throughout. Like, we're talking Golden Demon winning entries in some cases in this book. Lots of conversions and pretty cool stuff. And there's even battle reports throughout. Yeah, it's in black and white, but not everything was printed in full colour 15 years ago, okay? Leave me alone. Do you think that this book that was $20 15 years ago is really worth $50 now? Because these books are equivalents to one another, essentially. They provide the exact same things. So, is having a hardcover put on this book worth that extra $30? I mean, even with inflation, we're only talking maybe a $10 price rise over 15 years for this book. So let's say this is now a $30 book. Is it worth the extra $20 for the hardcover? Like, even on the back, you've got the fake Town Crier news article, the newsletter, you know, obituaries. Gerhard Weiss, drowned. Eugene Bruhl, consumed by a mutant snake. Peter Gelder, killed by the claws of a possessed. Ernst Franz, shot in the back by an elven arrow. Lucas von Braubens, poisoned in his sleep. Karl Strudelhofen, found frozen to death. Hans Zimmer, eaten by a squig. Yeah, they're funny. Yeah, it's I mean, it's a bit lame, but still, something funny. A bit of effort has gone into it, a bit of love. You know, there's still hand-drawn things in here, like Mordheim architecture. Doesn't that say something about the city that this game takes place in? And what you're trying to replicate? Even just some of these weird people. Like, this guy has humans on a leash, and it's not some BDSM thing. They're like mutants or thralls of some kind. That's fantastic. You know, like, that's great. That's what I want to see. Overall, the things that disappoint me about this, I can't have characters who are in Arnor, like Aladan and Elrohir, whether I've got the two mixed up because the twins are pretty interchangeable. They have the exact same rules after all. I can't use those two models, even though they were in Arnor. The Rivendell Warband actually uses models from both The Hobbit and from The Lord of the Rings. If you want to buy the bundles on the Games Workshop web store as well for battle companies, a lot of them don't sync up with the actual fucking models you need for the warbands. You get a lot of excess stuff or stuff you can't use until you unlock it. That's a problematic, in my opinion. Yeah, I can't make, say, some generic King of Men or Ranger Captain to lead my forces. It just lacks that customization that really allows you to make these games your own, that you can build your own fluff on, add to, and build up over time. And that really disappoints me personally. Yeah, the fact that a lot of the models are out of production as well, also pretty rude, or the fact that Games Workshop can't keep up with the supply. There's a lot of flaws currently with this system, we'll say. It's not a bad system, but it's definitely got a lot of teething problems. When this is the extent of the artwork in your book, that's problematic. When there's no real fluff about it, I just get a little preface and it just goes straight into it. It's not lazy, but it reeks of laziness. When, again, I can compare that to, like, content-wise, in a lot of ways, there's more content in this book here, which is from the Desolation of Smaug, and it adds all new stuff to the game, because at least it has fluff and backstories along with the scenarios, and they've done interesting things with some of the artwork and different people's forces, what sort of terrain they've come up with, that kind of thing, painting miniatures. And I mean, this is a pretty cheap book for Games Workshop standards. You see it's quite thin, which is why it's cheap. That book has as much useful artwork in it as this does. So yeah, overall a disappointing book with a lot of potential. And the worst part is it has a lot of "for now" added in under rules. Oh, for now, this is the rules. I don't want to know what the game is going to be in 5 years' time. I want to know what the game is now. I want to see you do something with it now. I don't want to be having to buy $50 expansion books for it or being necessitated to buy White Dwarf. Unless you're going to make them free PDF rules downloads, which a lot of the stuff for this game was, then we're going to have problems down the line. Anyway, that's my hopefully pretty comprehensive look at the Middle-earth battle companies. I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. Please leave your thoughts and comments below, and I'll see you all next time.